Hi, Abe.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. You're back in the, I see you're back in the city.
Back in the city.
Good.
Lamed Zion, 37.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to do two blot today so we can catch up for yesterday.
Okay.
We'll start off with Lamed Zion, 37. Hazid b'shvuas hapikodin. He knows that he's lying when he takes the oath, so he's amazed. And Hisrubo. And he had Asra. So Kivan Shechidushu. This is a new thing. There is no other Aveira where if you do it b'mezid, you bring a korban. We usually bring a korban when you do it b'shogeg.
Good.
But v'hacha maisi korban. But here we bring a korban. So maybe loishna asrubei v'loishna lo asrubei. That it makes no difference whether you had asra or dilma hani merely. When do you bring a korban hechad lo asrubei? When there was no edim. Aval hechad asrubei. So if you had asra and you did it b'mezid, maybe milk lucky. Maybe you get malchus like every other love. And korban lo maisi. And you wouldn't bring a korban. Oidilma havahav dina. Maybe the din would be you get malchus and you bring a korban. So what's the answer? Amrulay tanina. It's a mishnah. Chamura heimena shvuas apikotin. Shvuas apikotin is more stringent than shvuas ha'edus. Shechayavan als dono makois. Then you do get malchus if you do it b'mezid. Va'al shegagasa osham b'kesav shkolim. If you do it b'shogeg, you bring a korban osham. By Shavuos you don't bring only a korban, whether you do it b'shoigeg, whether you do it b'mezid. Now, the fact that the Mishnah said al dono makois. Now you don't get makas without asra, so michlal da asrubei. So it's clear that that piece of the Mishnah is dealing with asra, and yet ka'omar makas in korban lo. You only get makas, you don't bring a korban. So maybe that's the answer. And then based on that, my chumrah, how is Shavuos HaPikod more chomer than Shavuos HaEdus? The nichale leinshi the maisi korban v'lo lilki. People would rather bring a korban, not get malchus. That's the story. So Rava Baraisi Montana. Who
Okay,
is the author?
wait,
We're on
wait.
Lamed Zion. Lamed
Lamed
Zion.
Zion at the top.
Lamed Zion. About maybe a third the way down. Arlu Rava Baraisi Montana Zodin Shavuos HaPikod Lonit Kapara. Who is the Tana who says that if you bemaze it, take a shvus abikoden, there's no korban? That's Rav Shimon. Aval Rabbon korban nami maisi. But the Chachamim hold you do bring a korban, so there's no raya from that Mishnah because that Mishnah could be completely Rav Shimon. Om Rav Kana bar minei de'ayi. The anat tanina law. I brought that brisa to the yeshiva. V'hachi tanina law, and I learned it with a different nusach. Echad zdoin v'echad shigagasa by shvus apikodim. Whether you were mazid or a shogeg, oshim b'kesav shkolim. You bring a korban umay chumra. How is it more chomer than shvus edus? The ilu hasam by shvus edus, you bring a chatas bastanka. You could bring a chatas which is much cheaper. Hacha oshim b'kesav shnei shkolim. Here you have to bring an oshim that's worth 2 shkolim. That's the chumra. Freighting more of a ligmer mina. So why don't we learn from that brayso? So the question we asked that if you are amazing but shvus bikoden, do you get both malchus and bring a korban? Why don't we bring a proof from there that you only bring a korban, you don't get malchus? So the Gemara says because the malos would pay. Maybe the only reason over there you don't get malchus because there was no asra. But if he had asra, he would get malchus. Okay. Lishne achrina. There's another version of this. Torshma. Ein chayovin al shegigoso. That for shvus bikoden you're not chayiv. What do you mean? Mine chayav and don't know. What do you chayav if you do it b'mezid? Oshim b'kesav shkolim. And must be my labid asrube. You had asra, and maybe you see only bring a korban, you don't get malchus. Or says no, chanami do asrube. Here as well, there was no asra. Torshma. Lo. Im amit bin nazir tomei sheken loike. A nazir becomes tomei. He gets malchus for that. Tomei b'shvus apikoden sheina loike. But a shvus apikoden does not get malchus. So mida ka'amer shaloike. The fact that we're talking about malchus must be that there's asra. Michlal dasrube. Because you don't get malchus without asra. Yet the ka'amar tomei b'shvus apikoden sheina loike. Aval korban maisi. So here seems to be a proof that you bring a korban, but you don't get malchus. So the Gemara says no. My ena loke she'enu nifta b'malchus. You don't get pottered up only with malchus. You got to bring a korban as well. So michlal shenazir tomei nifta b'malchus. So are you implying that when it says over there that the nazir tomei gets malchus, that that's the only thing he has to bring? How korban ksiv be? You have to bring a korban too. So the Gemara says that's different. Hasam the maisi korban, it's kihecha the techla naziris petaharis. It's not kapora. It's part of the naziris. You can't start your new naziris without the korban, but it's not kapora. Okay. Armur rabbanon kamei de Rava. They said to Rabba, they asked him the question, what if you're mezi b'shvus apikoden and you had asra? Do you bring a korban? Amar lo, he answered, Michlal, the chilo asrube, when there was no asra ve'ike edim, but there were edim, would you be mechayev a korban? It's kfiris dvorim ba'alma. When you take a shvua, in that case, you're not being koi for mammon. Because the edim are going to make him chayev mammon in Beis Din. We don't need the shvua to do it. So then when he takes a shvua and denies the shvua, it's not kfira where there was mammon involved. And you would not bring a korban. Al maksava rabba, hakoifer b'mammon sheish levedim potter. If you take a shvua and you deny the shvua, and there were edim besides your shvua, you're potter from korban because you're chayav to pay because of the edim, not because of the shvua. I'll bring you a baraisa to support what you said. It says, he denied. Excluding the case of somebody admitted to one of the brothers or a partner that he owed money. V'nishbal sheker, prat leloive b'shtar, v'leloive be'edim. Excluding a case, there's no korban if you did the loan with a shtar, or you had 80. So there's no shvuas apikoden with korban when there's 80. So Rabbi rejects that baraisa as a proof for him. Imi shema lo tesayin. Doesn't help us. Because we can explain the baraisa ba'oimer lo visi, but lo visi be'edim. He loaned money without 80. I loaded without a shtar. He's not being koifer in the money that he owes. He has a different claim. So that's why it's not a typical potter. It's not a typical shvus because that's why he's potter. Mimai, how do you know this? Miditoni, v'chicheshba prat lemoide le'echa v'nachim le'echa v'nashutafi. Now what's this? Hi le'echa v'nachim hechidami. What is he being moided to the brothers? He admits that chelik belongs to him and not him. Why would that be potter? There is kfiris mammon. Elalav da amri lei mitarvin and yizavd. I borrowed the money from both of you. The Amr and they say, Lo michad minachu yasfi. No, you didn't borrow from both of us, just from one of them. Davalei kfiris dvarim ba'alma. He's admitting that he owes the money. He's just arguing, what exactly happened. So it's just kfir dvarim, not mammon. Umiduresha kviras dvarim sevenami kviras dvarim, and not kviras the choiv, and therefore there's no raya, says Rabba, to his shita. So we're going to bring other proofs. Simin choiv akitois debala bayis choimer nazira torshma ein chayiv al shikagoso. If a shvus hapikodin is a shoygeg, he's not chayiv. Umau chayiv al zdoinoi. If he's bemezid, what is he chayiv? Oshim bekeser shkolim. My love is on edim. He's koifer bemezid, that which what the edim said, and yet he's chayiv. How could you say you're potter when there's edim? This is low. Bezodin atzmo. He admitted himself that he lied when he took the shvuah, but no edim. But in fact, if there were edim there, he'd be potter. Torshma. Hayushtekite edim. There were two groups of edim. Kafra rishona. The first group of edim took a shvuah, and then they admitted they lied. V'achakach kafra shniya. Then the second group did the same thing. Shtein chayovus, they both have to bring korbanos. Mipnei shichola edus l'skaim b'shtein. The 80s could have stood with any of their testimony. So the Gemara says, Bishma Shniya Techayv. I understand why the second, they're the only Eidim that would have established a money claim. The first Eidim took themselves out of there. So I understand why the second group would be Chayiv. The first group were not Koifer, because there's always the second group that could have established the case. Hakai Mashniya. So there's no Kfiris Mamay. So why do you say in both cases they're Chayiv Korban? Amr v'inoch ma'askinon sha'haisa shniya b'shas Kfiris Rishon kroivim ben shasein. At the time that the first people gave testimony, the second group of Eidim were related through their wives. So they were Poseladis there. And the Nishoseyan were Goisasois. And they were on their deathbeds, the wives. Not the same Roiv Goisas and Lamisa. So since they're going to die, therefore there is no familiar relationship. Therefore there would be Roy Lahaid. Kamash Malon, Shash Demias Chai Ninu Veloshchivi. The Chiddush is that since they're still alive technically, they are related, they're considered Kroivim, and they would not be able to be made. Toshma. Bala Bayis, Sheton Tonis Gon of Bifikon. The guy leaves to China, leaves his watch for his next door neighbor. And when he comes back from China, the guy says, it's somebody stole it. And he swears, Benishba. And then he admits that he was lying. But Uboy Edim, that testified that it was not stolen from him. If he admitted before the Edim came, Mishalem Karen v'choymesh. He pays Karen what he stole and choymesh, the knas, the osham, and he brings the korban osham. If he admitted only after the Edim came, so then they proved he was a ganav b'sham tashlume kefel, and he brings the osham. So you see, even when there's mammon to be paid and there's Edim, you bring a korban. Versus Achanami, Ravina, they were related through their wives, so they couldn't be machayev them mammon. Amrle Ravina Ravashi Toshma. Chamuri Mimena Shvus Apikodin. Shvus Apikodin is more stringent than Shvus Eidus. Shechayavin al Zdono Makis. If you were mazid, you get Malkis. If you were shogeg, you bring a korban. The fact that you're discussing Malkus Mechlad has to be Eidim. That was exactly our question with our Eidim. Do you bring a korban as well as Malkus? You can't prove from this brisa. So there's no edim regarding that brisa. Toshma. Lo, Im Amr ben Nazir Tommy Shekin Loike, a Nazir who becomes Tommy gets Malkas, Tommy Rishus becomes Shena Loike. Now Dami. Ideleka Edim, am I Loike? Well, why would the Nazir get Malkas? There's no Edim. Elapshita Dike Edim. Ukitani, Tommy Bishwa becomes Shena Loike. Yet there's no Malkas by Shvasa Bikodin. But there is Korban, right? Malku de Loy Loike, have a Korban Maisi. So Tiyufta de Rabba. So we knocked Rabba out of the box. Tiyufta, it remains. Rav Yochanan Oma. A koifer b'mamen sheyesh lav edim. Person took a shvua on a mamen dika case and then denied it. But there are edim that can prove the case without a shvua. Chayiv, which is not like Rabba. But if he was koifer through a false shvua in a case where there's star, then he's potter. On Rabba, my time, Rav Yochanan. Edim avidi dimaisi. Edim can die. Could be that they won't get it. They'll die before they testify in court. So the shvua is relevant. But star hamonach, the star doesn't die. It's there. Forever you can prove in court what the case is. Of Yeshua Rav Papa. Star nami over the mirkis. What do you mean? You could lose a star. That's like death. I love Rav Yeshua. I know time Rav Yochanan. Mishum dahav star shibud karkos. How do you protect a star? Through land. And ve'mivin korban akfiras shibud karkos. You only bring a korban if somebody took a false shvu on mammon, not on karka. Itma. Ashbiya ede karka. Edim said that the land belonged to him. And the Edim say, and other people came and took a shvua that they don't know Edus on this case. So there's Edus as well as the shvua. And then he lied regarding the shvua. Pliga Rav Yechon Rav Elazar. Chadam Chayev. The Edus Chayev Korban because of shvua Edus. The Chadam Potter because it could have been proven without with the shvua. And to time Rav Yochanan Domer Potter. My Domer Rav Yochanan. If you took a false shvua by a monetary case, even though they're edim, you still chayv a korban. Star potter. But Ravuna B'Rav Yeshua is because of star is connected to karkos, and you don't bring a korban for kvir shibud karkos. Tistayim, it's a good proof. Lamish Rav Yochanan Rav Eliezer Plukted Rav Eliezer Rabbanan Kumiflagi. This machlokes is a machlokes tanoim. This is not. Hagoizel Sodom Chavero. Somebody stole a piece of land. B'shot v'nar, and the land was flooded. Chayv lamid lo yisodeh. You have to give him another piece of land. This piece of land is reduced in its value, and he has to pay back kashas gzeil. Div Rav Eliezer. However, here's the piece of land, take it. The same piece of land. Even though maybe it's reduced in value because of the flood. Because karkas ain't an exelas. What really is their machloikas? Rabbi Eliezer dorsh ribu umiuti. He uses ribu umiut. Rabbanan darshi klal yuprati. How does that work? Rabbi Eliezer darshi ribu umiuti. It says v'chichesh ba'miso. He denies riba. He denies anything. But then there's a detail. Bipikodin o b'tzumes yad. With a deposit or something that was stolen. Miyed. O mikol asher yishba. Anything he swears on. Choyzer v'riba. So you have the structure of riba, miyed, riba. So how do we learn that? Riba kol. My riba kol mili. So if you take a shvua on anything, umay miyed starois. So if the case involved a star, you would not bring a korban. Now Rabbanan darshi klal yuprati. Chichesh b'miso, that's a klal. General, any denial. But the detail b'pikodna b'tzumes yad o b'gazel prat. Then we classify Omi Kol HaSheishav Alav Chazer Klal. So you have a structure of Klalu Pratu Klal. How do you learn that? You have to look what's similar in the detail. Ma Prat Mufurish Dovra Metat of Gufo Mama. You're talking about something mobile and its intrinsic value. I've called of our Metat of Gufo Mama. Yotzu Karkos Shein Metal. Land is not moved. Yotzu Avodim Shuk Shul Karkos. Avodim are compared to land. Yotzu Shtoros. Sha'afu Pisha Metatlin Ein Gufo Mama. A star can be written on a piece of pottery. It's not worth anything. Man de B'chayev. In the case where there were 80 karka and you're still chayiv, that's Rabbi Lazar. He's holding like Rabbi Eliezer. That karka is in this parsha of Gzela, because the only thing that was excluded was shtar. Uman de potter krabona. Armale lo. Man de machayiv Rabbi Eliezer. Uman de potter armalecha. Ba'afil Rabbi Eliezer moed. Here even Rabbi Eliezer will agree that you bring a korban. Rachmana Omar. Mikola shei shavalav la sheker. The law hakol. So we exclude karkos from that chiyuv, from that miud. On Rav Papa Mishmeid Rav Masisu Nami Deka. I can prove it from the Mishnah. Diktani. Gonavta es shoiri. You tell the guy you stole my ox. V'hu omer loy gonavta. He denies. Omer lo mashbiacha. Take a shvuah. Omer omer. Chayiv. Vilu gonavtas avdi lo ktani. Why not? My time. Lav mishum she'eved iskish lekarkos. Eved is connected to land. V'en mivin korban al kfir shibir karkos. However, on Rav Papi Mishmeid Rava Ema Seifa Zaklal, Kol HaMishal Al Pi Atzmo Chayiv. If you're moide and you still pay chayiv, a korban, but v'shein Mishal Al Pi, but if you get off from paying by admitting, then you're potter. Now Zaklal, what does it come to include lasui mai? Lav lasui gonaftes avdi, even in case of stealing my slave. You can't prove from that. You can't be medak from that parsha. I'm going to learn another blot so we can finish the perek. Lamed Ches. Let me sign off, and I'm going to sign back in. Okay. Lamed Ches. Lamed Ches, 38. Shvuas hapikodin ketzad. You leave a pikodin with your neighbor, you come back, and he denies that he has it. He takes a shvuah. And then he was lying. So that's the case where he brings a korban. You say to him, Tenli pikodin sheyesh l'biyachad. Give me the watch I gave you. So Ton Rabbona. If he included a shvuah kolal to a lot of people, ein chayev ela shvuachas. But in parat, if he detailed to each and every person, chayev kolachas v'yachas to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer shvuah loy lecha v'loy lecha v'loy lecha. Chayev kolachas v'yachas. Then you have to bring 5 korbanos. But Rabbi Eliezer Omer loy lecha v'loy lecha v'loy lecha shvuah. You have to add Lashon Shvu at the end. Chayav kolachas v'yachas. And Reb Shimon Omer Shema Shvu kolachas v'yachad. You have to say Lecha Shvu, Lecha Shvu, Lecha Shvu. Amid Amar Shmuel. Klolush Rav Meir. That which Rav Meir saw as a cloud by V'lo Lecha, V'lo Lecha, because he had a Vav there, the Vav Achibur, is Protosh Rav Yehuda. Leads to a case of individual korbanos for Rabbi Yehuda. Uklolish Rabbi Yehuda, that which he says you only bring 1 korban, when you say lo lecha, you didn't add shvuah, is protosh Rav Meir. Would be the individual cases for Rav Meir where you bring multiple korbanos. But Rav Yochanan Amar kol moedim b'v'lo lecha shehu prat. If you say v'lo lecha, lo lecha, lo lecha, you bring 3 korbanos. even Rav Meir. Where's the machlokes? Lo nechleku ella lo lecha. Rav Meir Omer, that's also prat, that's a detail for an individual. Rav Omer klal. Vezer klal Rav Meir. How, when Rav Meir would you only bring one korban? Shvur she'en lachem biyadi. You use a general term. And therefore, b'mai kamiflagi. Shmuel dayek mi beraisa. Rav Yechon dayek mas nisan. Shmuel dayek mi beraisa. Shmuel is medak from the beraisa midika. Omar, in fact, Rabbi Yehuda says, v'loy lecha protehi. When you say lo lecha, that's separating to the individual people, to be chayv multiple korbanos. Mechlal, the Shmai Rav Meir she'omar klal havi. In that case, it's even lo lecha is considered a klal. You don't bring one korban. And in response, Amar Rav Yehuda, no, prata havi. But Rav Yochanan Omar, tarvayu l'Rav Meir prata havi. Both cases for Rav Meir is individualistic. Amar Rav Yehuda, bevelo lecha modina, when they have a vav, I'll agree with you. But lo lecha, pli galech, then I will say it's a general term, you'll only bring one korban. That's how Rav Yochanan learns. How does Shmuel respond? Ad oidi le oidi liflag ale iflagi. I don't understand Rabbi Yehuda is being moide, where he could say I'm choylek, meaning Rabbi Yochanan daik mas nisan. Midikam Rav Meir shvur she'en lechem biyadi klalavi. When you said shvur she'en lechem biyadi, that's a general, and you only bring one korban. Comes out michlal v'lo lecha is pratab. You have to bring multiple korbanos. The Isa Gedaitach, if you can hold it, Rav Meir holds v'lo lecha is klalavi. So adam ashmon shvur she'en lechem biyadi is klal. I would know that Nishmin and Shvul lo lecha is a klal, and certainly Kol Shekin Shvul she'en lechem biyadi would be a klal. So the Shmuel Amar, this is how you have to explain Rav Meir. Kol ha'omer v'lo lecha is ka'omer Shvul she'en lechem biyadi dami is like that, and I'll bring you a riot. It's not lo lecha v'lo lecha. You chayav each an individual korban because you said v'lo. So that's a kasha on Shmuel, who said that the vav is not important. Tani, you have to amend the b'rais and say lo lecha without the vav to rescue Shmuel. Okay, Torshma. Tainli pikadnu tzumas yad v'gazel v'aveda. Give me the deposit, that which you stole, that which you found. And he takes a shvua that I don't have pikadnu tzumas yad. You chayav for each an individual one. So there is a vav. Vitzumas yad v'gazel v'aveda. So you need the vav. Again, it's kashan Shmuel. Again, the Gemara answers for Shmuel, Tni, Tzumas Yad Gezel Aveda without the Vav. So it's in harmony with Shmuel. Torshma. Tenli Chitin Usa Oirin V'Kusma. Give me wheat, barley, and rye. And we say you bring multiple karbonos. Dafki, you have the Vav. Again, the Gemara says, Tni, get rid of the Vav. So Oirin Kusmin. So the Gemara is really bothered now by all these answers. Shibush Tani this price was so confused that you have to repair all of these emendations. So the Gemara accepts that refutation. Ella Hamani, who is our Mishnah? It's not like Rav Meir. It's Rebbe. The Omar Loishna Kazais. Veloshna Kazais Ukazais. Both cases protahavi. Whether you mention two things without a vav achibor or you mention it with a vav achibor, it's a detail, and you bechay multiple korbanos. And Torshma mididei, bring a raya from Rav Meir himself. Rav Meir oimer afilu chita usar v'kusemes chayv olachas v'achas. Comes out according to Rav Meir, when you add the vav, it's a detail, which is not like Shmuel. So again, the Gemara, to save Shmuel, Tani chita sa'ar kusemes. So my afilu, what is afilu? What's the chiddush? Aravacha b'Rav Ika, afilu chita b'chlal chitin, usa'oira b'chlal sa'oirin, v'kusemes b'chlal koismin. We're talking about general wheat, not one wheat kernel. We're talking about the wheat species, period. Then, Tainli Pikodin, Utsumas Yad, Gazel Vaveda, Shesh Berchen, he takes a shvua. You'd have to bring multiple karbonis. Same thing, Tainli Chitin Soren, give me the wheat, barley, and rye that you're holding, and he takes a shvua. You're chayav only one. But if he says Shein Lecha Biyadi, it's only one. But if he says Shvur Shein Lecha Biyadi Chitin Soren V'Koisman, then you bring multiple. Rav Yochanan. Pruta Mikulan. It's got to be worth a pruta even when you add it all up. Each one of them does not have to be a pruta. It's mitzvah reves. Pligi b'Ravach Ravina. Chad Amar, that which we said in the Mishnah that you're chayiv on each one, apratim chayiv. Meaning the different detail, the chitin, the so'ir, and the kosemen. But akloi lo machayiv. But on the general, that he said shvur shein lecha biyadi, you're not chayiv another korban. Only the three. That which Rav Yochanan said, that it's a pruta, all of them are worth one pruta, that goes back to that case of shvur shein lecha biyadi. And there you would bring a korban if it was worth a pruta. V'chad amar aklali nami machayiv. You'd be chayav for the individual chitin, kusmin, v'sorim, and the general one when you said ein lecha biyadi. Even though there wasn't even though one of those things were not a shavar pruta. If together it was a shavar pruta, you'd mechayiv everything. If you have chitin, kusmin, v'sorim, you have 15. But if you're correct, if you have to bring for the general statement of shein lecha biyadi, you'd have 20. So, haitana de pratika chashiv, de klal lo chashiv. He's only adding up the individual cases, not the general case. But the enochanami, you do bring a korban for the general case. For vatani rabchia harakan esrim chatos. We do have a statement related to this Mishnah where Rav Chia says you do bring 20, so you are mechashiv the klal. So the Gemara says, that brisa is talking about something else. When you're denying to 5 different people on 4 different claims, pikodin sumisyad v'gazel v'aveda, but not our case of one person denying the multiple things. Barbine Rav and Rav Nachman. Hayu chamisha tovim noisoi. He has 5 creditors that are demanding things from him. They detail the pikadon, something that was stolen, a lost object, or something that was he forced them to sell to him. And he says to one of the person, I take a shvur I don't have. And he adds, v'lo lecha. Do we say achadim mechayiv is only chayiv one, or dilma akol chadav v'chadav mechayiv, or is chayiv for each one? Toshma, the Tani Rab Chia, harei kan esrim chatos. Hey, there's 20. Hey chidami, the parish. Rab Chia minyana asal hashminan. If he detailed to each one of the claimants. Of course we know what was Rav Chia is giving us a math book. We know it adds up. We can add it up ourselves. And Alav Deloy Parish. He didn't, he gave a general statement. Ushmamina protavi lo lecha is considered a detail. So that seems to be a proof. Shmamina. The Mishnah said, Anasta upitita as bisi. You raped my daughter. And the one who is said to denies it, and it was lying. So since the payment for rape is a knas, Reb Shimon pattered mi korban if there was a knas. The Chacham said you're chayiv, because besides the knas part, there's boisha supagam, which is a tvias mammon, which even if he admitted, he'd have to pay. My time at Rav Shimon. Hoil the ikr knas hu tovea. The main payment is a knas. The other things just sort of add up. And since if he admitted he'd be moide b'miktas, he'd be moide b'knas potter, he doesn't have to bring a korban. Amar Rava, Mashal Rav Shaman, Lamad David Omer. La'adam shalom chaver ten li chitin sorim v'kusmin. Give me wheat, barley, and rye. Sheyesh l'biyadcha. Amar lo shvur shen l'cha biyadi chitin. I don't have. He takes note. I don't have wheat. V'ishtakach shechitnu de lesle. And in fact, he was not lying about that. But sorim v'kusmin isle. But he didn't say anything about sorim v'kusmin. He's potter. When he swore about the wheat, he was telling the truth. It's not a comparison. Hasam, in the comparison you brought, by the Sorim, he didn't say anything by the Sorim v'koismin. Here, in the other case, in the case of the rape, he denied the whole thing. If you want to compare it something, give me the wheat that I've stored by you. And he says, I take a shvur, I don't have it. He finds that he doesn't have wheat. But and he did not, remember, he was told, and he said, so there he's clearly denying on the Soren and the Kusmin. So the Mechayev there's no Shaila, be Chayev Korban. Ella, by claiming that he raped his daughter, he wants to get the Knas. He's not interested in the Boishas Pagam. That's not what he's Toveya. And therefore the Nishba is Potter. Because the main time that he was being koifer is the Knas part. The Divrei Chacham, Boishas Pagam Toveya. He wants both. He wants the Knas and the Boishas Pagam. That's why it's Chayiv. When he denied the Shvuah. B'mai kamiflagi. Amar Papa Shimon Sover Lo Yishavik Inish Midi the kids for Tova Midi Lo kids. The Knas is set amount, 50 shkolim. The other stuff is variable. A person doesn't give up that which he knows is certain as compared to that which is variable. Rabbanan Sarvi Lo Yishavik Midi the Chimoide Be Lo Mifter. Even if you admit to the rape, you'd have to pay the boishas ubekam, so a person doesn't give that up, the toiveya. Regarding the knas, if the person ends up admitting, you wouldn't have to pay the knas. So that's why the ikr tviya is on the boishas ubekam. Tavimidi the chimoide be mifter. Okay, stop here. Wow.
Not easy.
You always keep rolling on. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Okay?
Before Tzvika's year.
Yeah, 7
Yeah.
o'clock.
Good night. Bye.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Good night.